and get started. So yeah, we've still got people chiming in. So I'm going to start off a little bit differently tonight. So I'm hoping that Cedric and Jennifer are either with us or join us, because if not, this isn't going to work. Okay, we'll give it a minute. Oh, there's Jennifer. She's here. So today I was able to carve out a little bit of time to go in and look at your reflective response for when, I guess it was week 4, when I had you post a picture. And, you know, a lot of people think this is like the stupidest assignment ever, but I will tell you it is actually my favorite because it is so interesting, the pictures people post. It gives me a really good insight into kind of your hearts and who you are. So I picked out 2 pictures that I thought were just very unique and unlike what other people were posting. And so Jennifer's was one of them, and then Cedric's was the other. So Jennifer, would you, since not everybody gets to see your picture, let me see if maybe I can actually pull it up. But Jennifer, will you describe to everyone what your picture was? And what really got to me was the caption and description that you included.
So the picture that I chose this was a hard assignment for me because I have such passion for what I do as a teacher, but I know I'm moving towards the leadership role and the purpose that God has intended for me. So I chose a picture as me as a leader, and I see myself as a part of a family at my school. That's the culture that we've tried to cultivate in my very small, tiny private school, and we don't have a whole lot of resources, but we really value each other. And so I posted a picture of my team of teachers. I'm a kindergarten teacher, so I posted a picture of my team, and we were leading a song by our students were singing on stage. When we were in front of the stage, and one of the husbands of the teachers caught a picture of us leading the song. And so that's the picture that I chose because those women are my family and they lift me up and they excite me about leading them, and they're great people.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a really cute picture, and if Jennifer's okay with it, I'll post it in I'll send it out on the news forum or whatever for everybody. But you've got these there are 5 teachers, right? Yeah, 5 teachers, all on their knees, and you can see, and it looks almost like they're doing sign language. But what I loved about it was the emphasis on the fact that it was all about a team, and it was like family. And guys, it just sort of reminded me, and I started thinking about when I saw Jennifer's picture, what does it really mean to be a leader? And there's a million different philosophies and definitions and all that out there. But at the end of the day, if we're really being, leading appropriately and all of those kind of things, it's the idea that, if you look behind you and nobody's following you, you're not leading. But at the same time, the most effective leaders that I've ever known, or had the honor to work with or work for, were those people that made me feel like I was a part of their family, that they had my back. And even if I messed up,
bacon over the top of them,
they would still, be there to support and to help me. So thank you, Jennifer. I just thought it was an awesome, awesome picture. So I keep hoping Cedric will join us because, again, it was just a really thought-provoking picture. But is there anybody else? And I'm not trying to slide anybody else. I just knew we didn't have time to go through everybody's. But is there anybody else who wants to share their picture? Because they were all awesome. I mean, some of you guys brought me to tears. Just, it was so clear what your hearts were. Anybody else want to share what theirs was? If not, I'll call on you.
I'm trying to find mine. Hold on one second.
Okay. I remember Lauren's was really, really good, and Kale's was too. Some of you actually had either the same or very similar pictures. Andy's was cool too.
I'll say something real quick.
Okay, thanks, Kale.
We are going into our 5th year of Leader Me at our school.
Yes.
And not only has it transformed our school, our culture, and what we do at our school, but it has led me directly into this path. I wasn't ready. My principal kept pushing me, when you gonna go? And being coordinator of the Leader in Me program gave me the opportunity to lead PLCs and help other teachers, and kind of almost in an administrative role. And it directly has a hand in getting me where I am today.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that. As soon as you said Leader in Me, I remembered your picture exactly. So that's another one too. If Kale's okay with it, I'll post it. If you're not familiar with the Leader in Me, it's I don't know, sort of a takeoff on Covey's work, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. But in my opinion, it's not nearly as complex, but it's very applicable and easy to implement and use, and it's really, really strong. Anne Marie, I see you've got your picture up there, so you want to chime in and tell everybody about yours?
Yes, mine is a take from the Leader in Me program as well. We implemented it several years ago at my previous school, and we're implementing this year at my current school. Hold on one second.
That's okay, don't feel bad. And at the earlier meeting, I had to shut my dogs out of the room.
Children are getting rowdy. Anyway, and so that was the very first time that I wrote the goal of grad school down on paper. And my actual picture symbolizes do your best every day to leave better people for the planet. And that applies to my 3 children, and it applies to schools. So whatever I have to give that day is what I give. Sometimes it's 80%, sometimes it's 50%, but on those other days I give 110 and make up for the slacker days. But that's just my my vision statement for myself, or my mission statement for myself. And so whenever that parent principal actually, she didn't even realize what my mission statement was, or what goals I had written down, but she first talked to me about becoming a leader. And then when I mentioned it to my new principal just one time in conversation, she's like, you ought to do it. And so that's when I signed up, like the next week or 2.
Yeah, thank you. And that's perfect. You and Kale are right on the same page, and talking about it. As I know that we're supposed to be talking about leading instruct curriculum and assessment, or whatever the title of this course is. Sorry, I get them all confused. But I think this is a really critical point, that if you're going to lead anything, whether it's curriculum, instruction, a campus, a program, a group of other individuals, or even leadership in your own lives, one of the things that I don't think we do that is absolutely essential to being an effective leader over time. I think that, I started very young, because of course I'm not old now, but I started very young into leadership and administration. I got my first administrative job when I was only 27. And I was, quote, leading people that were a lot older and a lot more experienced than me. And one of the things, I had a really phenomenal boss at the time that she made me sit down and do, was to write out what my vision was for my leadership, and to really define that. And then, to think about what that looked like in action. We all know philosophy, we all know principles, you're going to be tested on that when you take your, certification test, all of those pieces. But at the end of the day, no matter what particular model or philosophy that you aspire to, you have to know what that looks like in action. And you have to practice it, you have to rehearse it, you have to think about it. And sometimes you have to do some hard self-reflection. If we don't take the time to do that, then you will be leading by the seat of your pants. And there are days that you lead by the seat of your pants just because that's the way it is. But when you really take the time, and the Leader in Me, I think, is a wonderful program, because that's part of what it does. It forces you to really think about goals, and to think about who you are and what you value, and how you want to go about approaching the world. This hit home for me one day. I was a middle school principal, and I think I've shared with you guys, I have the utmost praise and respect. I respect all teachers. You guys are the most important people in the whole entire world. But particularly middle school, because it's just not my thing. 13 and 14-year-old human beings, and I don't always get along real well. And I will never forget, this was a very defining moment for me. I don't even remember exactly what was going on, but I remember being in the foyer of my school, and there were like millions of kids around me. And I was trying to get them all to do something, which is hard enough with any group of students, but when you have, middle school kids, that's a real challenge. And one of the students kept pestering me, like it's almost like they're just tugging at your clothes, and Miss Fraley, Miss Fraley, Miss Fraley, Miss Fraley, Miss Fraley, and I'm like, and I lost my temper. And I don't like to lose my temper, and I certainly don't like to do it in a public forum with a kid. And I went off on this kid. I mean, it was not pretty. And, and he just kind of sulked away. And I remember after I finally got the kids situated, organized, do whatever they were supposed to do, I felt horrible. I mean, really horrible. And I kept thinking, this is not who I am. I wouldn't want to be treated this way. I wouldn't, I expect everyone to treat each other with dignity and respect, and I just blew it. And so I went the next day, and the kids were all at lunch, and I found this particular student. And I knew him well enough to know that this would not embarrass him. So I brought him up to the front of the cafeteria, got out the microphone, because I had about 400 kids in the cafeteria at that point. And I said, you guys all saw what happened yesterday and how I blew up. And I said, and I named him, I owe this student an apology. I was wrong, and I hope he will accept my apology. And he, of course, he was very gracious and nice and accepted it and all that. But it was a life-changing moment for me as a leader to realize that when we act out of our value system or our character, we have to make it right. And I will tell you, I never, ever had another problem with any of those students because they saw me be a human being and own my bad behavior. And so suddenly they took responsibility. So, like I said, we're kind of off topic, but think about what it means, what you value, who you are, the way you want to behave, and demonstrate that day in and day out. Because, guys, people are watching everything we do every second of every day. So unfortunately, Cedric doesn't seem to be with us tonight. So we're going to talk about him behind his back. So let me see if he's on my second page here. Cedric, are you here today? Nope, he's not here. Okay, so I'm only going to say wonderful things about him, and I hope he doesn't mind. If he does, he can chastise me, and I will do the public apology. Cedric chose what I thought was one of the most thought-provoking pictures I've ever had anybody post. Ever. And I've done this assignment many times. It was a picture of a jail cell. And looking out of the window of this jail cell, with the bars and everything, was a young black man. And at first I was kind of taken aback. And then I started thinking about it. And I thought about, and I think I've shared with you, most of my personal experience in education was in an urban school district. Where most of the students were low socioeconomic, they were Black, Hispanic, Asian, whatever. And I started thinking about how many students that I had as a principal or as a teacher that I know for a fact today are in prison or in jail. And I'm not proud of that. That really, still to this day, breaks my heart. And I actually have 2 students who are on death row in Texas. And when I saw Cedric's picture, it brought back all of those feelings about what could I have done differently? What was the missing piece for these kids? And in Dallas, a few years ago, there was a lot in the media about the pipeline to prison, and the fact that so many of our kids, particularly our young Black men, were ending up in jail and in prison. And how did we change that? How did we just take ownership as a community and make that stop? And so when I saw Cedric's picture, I thought, he's right. Should that not be a driving force for all of us to make sure that every student gets what they need from us as educators, from us as a community, from us as human beings, so that we stop this pipeline for so many of our kids into prison? So I wanted him to talk about it because I'd love to hear exactly what was going through his head, but it really touched a chord with me, and made me stop and think, what could we have done differently? If we could have found that one person that could get through to this child. And actually one of my students who's in prison, we communicate all the time. And it's really been, like I said, very life-changing for me. Like I said, I just really appreciated Cedric sort of taking on that secret or that sort of unspoken about topic of where we failed kids. So anyway, maybe I can get him, if he's with us next week, I'll have him reach out. But I'll share his picture as well. And whether you agree or disagree with his thoughts or mine, that's certainly your right. But like I said, there's nothing more heartbreaking than when we see kids who don't have what they need in life. And it's something that I know I take very personally. So, Danielle, I see you over there reacting. You want to share? And that's not a bad thing. I can just feel your passion through the screen. Okay, so the other thing too that I wanted to talk to you guys about, I was reading the discussion forums about the video where we got to watch the teacher teach. So what were you, just tell me in general, what were your thoughts? What did you think of the teacher? And by the way, it's actually a staged video. It's not a real person teaching. So it's like you're critiquing somebody. I mean, they had a script to follow. So what are your thoughts?
My daughter was watching over my shoulder, and she's going to 5th grade this year. And
Yeah.
she's, about 1 minute in, she was like, I'd be so bored in that class.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, everybody. I think what stood out the most for me was the lack of differentiation for some of the students with, as especially a lead teacher, I think that's really what I go into every classroom looking at to make sure that we're doing something to accommodate those students. And, while she was asking certain questions, I don't think that there was, I think there was other avenues that needed to be pursued in order to meet the needs of all the students.
Sorry, I'm talking and I'm muted. So how often, do we see classrooms where that's occurring, guys? Unfortunately, way too frequently. Okay. Other thoughts from the video?
I also noticed, like, the classroom management, the kids that were passing out the stuff seemed unsure of exactly what to do. So, that wasn't a commonplace thing for them to do.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. We oftentimes sort of dismiss how important routines and procedures can be. So I'm reading over here too. It was like a teacher reading a book, and yeah, the kids didn't have one in front of them to follow the lesson. Absolutely. Hang on, my daughter's calling me. Let me just message her.
I thought that it could have been such a fun lesson. I mean, it's money, it's tactile, it's everything that it makes for a great lesson. Yeah,
lots of opportunity. So let's kind of switch gears. Now, I know some of you may not have watched it yet because it's not technically due yet, but for those of you that have had the opportunity to see the video, how would you handle this? What do you do? So you're the person who's gone in to observe this teacher. What's going to be your go-to strategies?
Well, one thing that I posted and somebody responded, and that they said that was a 1st grade skill being taught in a 3rd grade classroom, which I didn't even look at the scope and sequence or curriculum. And so my first thought was, okay, we need to bring in our curriculum plan and say, hey, this isn't anywhere on here.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Amy. Thank you for bringing that up. One of the things that I know we really pushed principals to do when I was in Dallas and Irving both, take your standards with you. It may be on your phone, it may be in a book, whatever. But first and foremost, make sure the teachers are teaching what's appropriate for that particular content or grade level. Because, I know as an elementary principal, I had some teachers who Their favorite lesson was always, the dinosaurs, kind of thing. And we did dinosaurs in pre-K. We didn't need to do it again in kindergarten, and third grade, and fifth grade, and God forbid, all the way up into middle school. But everybody loved to learn about dinosaurs, but it wasn't even in the curriculum for everybody. So absolutely great point, Amy. Look at the curriculum and make sure that they are teaching what should be taught at the appropriate level of rigor. Okay? What else did you notice?
I felt like they could have had the differentiation, especially they could have had almost every group or like sets of groups have the same problem or different problems. She had the whole class had the same problem. I mean, she could have worked 15 or 25 problems in a very short amount of time. The kids could have told quickly their answers and how they got the response, and they could have worked a whole lot of scenarios in a short amount of time.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm sorry, go ahead.
I don't know if it was just like the way the video was edited, but like I was confused on the directions. So I was like, am I an idiot? I mean, I kept going back and I was like, I must be missing something. And then also too, the closure, there was just no relation to real life. I felt like the main thing I took away was that there were 22 coins in the bag.
Yep, you're right.
Taking away, then I don't understand what these kids are supposed to be taking away. So
yeah, Suzette just posted that she'd like to have seen more open-ended discussion. Absolutely agree. And then Andy put that the two boys in the front maybe needed different partners because of behavior or learning challenges. Absolutely, guys. And like you, Megan, I've actually had the real life experience where I'm observing a teacher and I am so confused. I'm like, what in the heck are you trying to teach? And unfortunately, I'm not a very transparent kind of person. So, I'm known to lean over to the students and go, do you understand what she's doing? And the student's like, no. I'm like, well, I don't either. I was hoping we could figure this out together. It happens, guys. And unfortunately, it happens more frequently than we probably even realize.
I had to look at the date on the video and I was like, oh, 2013. Well, let me give her some benefit of the doubt. I mean, it's 5 years have passed. Maybe just a lot has changed. I'm so happy to know that this was staged because I kept thinking, oh my goodness, if this is what really exists in like the majority of class, I mean, this is so poor woman and her poor kids because it just seems so outdated. There was nothing no technology, nothing used to like engage them. That could be so easy for a little quick check, clickers, anything, quick and fun, and especially for that age group to get them involved. And it was just so teacher directed more than student directed. And that was kind of crazy to see.
Yeah. Megan, I'm going to burst your bubble just a little bit. Yes, it was from 2013. It was actually a video we created when I was in Dallas that we used to train principals on how to observe and give appropriate feedback and plan professional development. Despite the fact that it was 5 years old, that was a compilation of what we were seeing in about 50% of our classrooms, even up through 2016 and 2017. At the time, we had a very controversial, I thought he was great, superintendent who, was saying publicly about 50% of our teachers need to be gone from at least our schools. If somebody else wants them, more power to you, or absolutely gone from the profession. Because we took those elements that we were seeing pretty frequently and we as administrators, or as assistant superintendents, I had to do minimum of 100 observations in every school that I was supervising. So in a given year, I was hitting 100 or 1,400, 1,500 observations. And then you multiply that by the 20 of us. So it's a pretty astronomical number of classrooms that we were looking at. And we were picking out, so when we staged that video, we were picking out the elements. And we had a lot of teacher turnover, good or bad. Lost some good teachers who left voluntarily, but also kept some that we shouldn't have, kind of thing. Unfortunately, I can't tell you how many classrooms I would go into, and that was the level of instruction I was seeing. And I left the district in October of 2016. So, part of what you have to figure out as a leader is how do you coach that? How do you develop that? And I'm sorry, I wish I remember, I believe it was Chris Gatlin, who talked about in his post, and if I think I'm right, but if you want to go in and look at Chris's, he talked about, sorry, my internet's acting funky. Sorry, I keep freezing, my internet's acting funky tonight. Chris talked about how he needed to go in and give coaching and feedback. And Kimberly just put in there that 2 schools that she's taught at require peer observations, and you saw it rather often. Guys, I will tell you part of the challenge as a leader. You guys are all, I know this for a fact, highly skilled master teachers. You come to educational leadership because a principal encouraged you, a colleague encouraged you, because you're good. You're really good at what you do. And we need that. But unfortunately, because we live in our silos in our classrooms, we don't often see, unless you have a school that does peer observation or collaborative walkthroughs or whatever you call it, we don't often see how other people teach. We assume everybody's great, like you are. And in reality, they're not. I would say at least in any given school, the best schools have 10 to 20%. Schools that don't perform well have sometimes as many as 70 or 80% of teachers who this is the way they teach. So part of the trick around leading instruction and leading teachers is you have to decide, how do I move teachers forward? You guys had some great ideas about how to do professional development, but I will tell you the most effective tool, and it works. When you go in and observe a teacher, you pick the one thing that you believe is going to make the difference in improving that teacher's instruction. And in this case, I probably would, I don't know, there's so many. There's I could have a laundry list, and my temptation is to just, hand the teacher, here's 52 things you need to work on. Pick one. So the one that I would probably hone in on would be student engagement. How do you actively involve students in a meaningful way so that they're getting and learning the content? Rigor is also a huge element. I mean, man, that was bad. And also the administrative procedures, but those are, the administrative procedures are kind of quick fixes. I can write her a better lesson plan that gets her on track, at least on grade level. But student engagement, that's really, really critical. So what I would do is I would be very specific, and I would sit down with this teacher and we would talk about, here's what I saw, here's exactly what was going on. Let's pick a strategy, one strategy that I want you to try. You tell me when you're going to try that strategy. So let's say it's tomorrow, and I'm going to be back in your classroom, and all I'm going to do, I don't even take paper and pencil. I'm going to sit at the back, and if you get that strategy, you're going to get the thumbs up. If you don't get a thumbs up from me, we got to work on it a little more. So then we would revisit again, and we would keep doing this until the teacher gets it. Now, I will tell you, after 3 attempts, if the teacher still doesn't have it, I have a decision to make as a leader. Either they're not capable, or they're not taking the feedback. So because I am a very assertive, non-transparent person, I then literally kind of move the teacher aside and I take over the lesson. And the teacher has to watch how I'm teaching it because I'm supposed to be the best master teacher in the building. And it's coaching in the moment. And with your teachers who really want to learn, it's a give and take. It's almost like a dance where I'll teach for 3 or 4 minutes and I'm going to turn it back over to you to try. And if you get it, I'm just going to ease on out completely. But if you don't quite get it, then I'm going to come back in and teach and do that nuanced sort of dance back and forth. I had a principal in Dallas who was the best I've ever seen at doing this. And not only did her teachers appreciate it, not only did her teachers appreciate it, they really grew absolutely exponentially. Because guys, we can all go to all the professional development in the world, whether it's big group, small group, whatever, but seeing it happen in action is where the rubber meets the road. And I see on here, Anne Marie said one of her principals assigned a mentor teacher to do that. That's great. That's wonderful and helpful. But I'll tell you, you really want to get street cred as a leader or as a principal, you do it. as the principal or the assistant principal.
It keeps messing up every time I try to press enter. It's messing up. But so like first she had several new teachers. Is why she did this. So she had like 3 or 4 mentor teachers, and they worked really close with them. So like on the first day, they observed the teacher. On this, they gave them a couple days to talk about it and have a post conference and all that. Then they modeled for the teacher, and then they observed again.
Awesome.
And then if they needed to, then they remodeled again and retaught. Like they worked with them through the whole process, and it was great. It was almost like Super Nanny is how I felt like it was. Really gave them hands-on experience and hands-on examples.
That's excellent. And I will tell you, you've got to do that with your new teachers because they need all the help and support they can get. I just totally lost my train of thought. Another thing that everybody brought up too was questioning strategies. Absolutely, guys. I would, unless you're in a very unusual school, lots of professional development and support around the idea of metacognition and questioning strategies. Very, very high yield. That's why I love the Glickman book, because it really focuses you on things that are going to make a big difference. Yeah, and Katina, I know, unfortunately, it just makes me mad that we have principals that, they're not about growing people. Katina said that she had more, she wished we had more principals with that mindset instead of the gotcha sort of mentality. There does come a point, and I hate to say got you, but there does come a point where if people aren't growing, for their sake as well as the student's sake, you have to make a decision. But if you don't give everybody, really tons and tons of support so they can grow, teachers don't go into the profession wanting to do a bad job. They just many times don't have the skill set. And it's up to us. That's the mark of a leader. What is it I value? What am I about? How am I going to demonstrate that? And most importantly, how am I going to coach you and support you? Yeah, and Danielle, you're right. That does come from the Marsha Tate Dendrite series. I love it. Awesome. And the book, oh gosh, there's so many. Oh my gosh, Anne-Marie, 10 Principles in 15 years. Oh my gosh. I don't know how you're still standing as a teacher. That's crazy. What book did I mention? Did I mention a book, or was that one that came from Danielle? My favorite book in the world is Todd Whitaker, who does 15 Things Great Principals Do Differently. And then Carl Glickman, I just found out it's not in print anymore, so if you really want a copy, I'll just scan it to you, but it's called Leadership for Learning. It's an old ASCD book, but it's one of the best. Quite honestly, I think it's absolutely one of the best. Another really good one is, I can see the cover and I can't get the name right. Hang on. Some people like Paul Bambrick Santoyo's, whether you're talking about Driven by Data or I can't remember what his other one was, but I'm not a big fan of Paul's, quite frankly. That's just my opinion. Some people think he's wonderful. Okay. All right, so we were supposed to talk about curriculum audits tonight, but I'm going to kind of forego that discussion because, quite frankly, curriculum audits are usually something done at a central office level. You can do them at your own campus, and I sent you a bunch of resources on how to do that. But quite frankly, I'm not sure that's really as critical as some of the other things that we've been talking about. The other part of it, too, that I just wanted to sort of remind you about in terms of leading and coaching teachers is the idea around differentiated professional development. So I know one of the things that I have seen happen all the time is we tend to do professional development one size fits all. Now we expect teachers to differentiate in their classrooms based on needs and data and learning. But when it comes to development for our teachers and our staffs, it's one size fits all because you know what? That's easy and convenient. Unfortunately, it is extremely ineffective and inefficient. So when you are coaching or observing a teacher, you will notice across time, especially if you're in classrooms like you're supposed to be, you will notice trends. So for example, we used to have a peer observation process at one of my schools, and we kept noticing that Nobody seemed to know how to teach vocabulary effectively. So that became a strand for our professional development. I also noticed one of our big issues was student engagement. My math teachers could not engage their students. They did a great job teaching to the whiteboard or teaching to the document camera, but they were not teaching their students. It was very passive learning. Students, were just kind of sitting there and they really weren't getting it. And I could not seem to figure out a way to get my math teachers to engage their students. So one of my teachers came up with the idea, let's do an observation. Which department in our high school does the best job with student engagement? And they said, it's our dance department. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, why not? Nothing I'm doing is working. Let's try it. So we took all the math teachers and we sat in the dance classes for a good 30 minutes and observed. And then when we came out, very simple process, but I asked them, what did you see? What wonderings or questions do you have? And is there anything that you saw in there as a math teacher that you can take and apply to your classrooms? And I will never forget, one of my teachers looked at me, and she was one of those, I love her dearly, we're friends to this day, but she always liked to challenge me. And she sort of took delight in, putting me in my place, especially publicly with her peers. So she looked at me and she said, I really thought this was the stupidest idea in the world when you told us that we were going to come observe math teachers. But she said, dance teachers. She said, I teach math. I teach algebra 2 and pre-calculus. How in the world is, watching a dance teacher going to help me? And she said, I finally get it. And I said, I almost fell over at that point. But I said, what is it that you saw that was so affirming to you? And she said, they went around, they showed the skill to everybody. But then they went around to each individual student and did corrections. And if you're familiar with dance, this was a ballet class, and they physically were manipulating the students' bodies. Hold yourself. I'm not a dancer, so forgive me for those of you that are. Hold your arms this way. Do this, do that. And she said, that's what my students need. She said, I need to look at how they're going about solving a problem and give them correction at the exact point where they're not getting it right. And she said, I just looked for, did they get the right answer at the end? I wasn't looking at their thinking. The dance teachers are looking at their movement. For me, that's their thinking. And I was like, oh my gosh, she finally got it. Did I need to do a whole staff development for the math teachers on engagement? No. What I needed was to get in their brains and demonstrate for them in a way that made sense. So that's how you go about coaching, but you have to differentiate. In my science department, I had one teacher who was struggling with student engagement. Everybody else had it down. They were rocking and rolling with it. So would it be fair to do science department training on student engagement? Because all the others are like, oh my God, been there, done that, moving on. No, I needed to provide individualized, differentiated professional development for that one teacher. We coined it as just-in-time professional development, but everybody had a different professional development plan. Nobody had the same professional development unless we saw it was a need across the campus. And quite frankly, the only thing we saw across the campus was vocabulary. Everybody else, we grouped them, we did some individual, some people had to go to way more staff development than others. But guys, just like we differentiate for kids, we also have to differentiate for our teachers. Okay? All right. So with all that being said, what questions, comments, or concerns do you have? Anything for the good of the group?
Can you come to Acadia Parish and just go ahead and get our little parish in shape?
Sure, why not? Yeah. I will tell you a funny story. When I was in Dallas, I think I may have told you guys, my husband and I, we were late in life, second marriages, and he wanted to live in Bossier, and I had a great job and everything in Dallas and a house and all that. And so the first, couple of years we were married, I commuted back and forth, not every day, but I would work in Dallas all week and a lot of Saturdays, and then I would just come home for the weekend and then turn around. I'd get up at 4 o'clock in the morning on Mondays and drive back to Dallas. Well, a superintendency came open for a Louisiana parish. And so I applied and made it to the top 10, made it to the top 5. And then I was very disappointed when I didn't make it any further than the top 5. And, talk it up. That's just the way it is, right? So my husband, being who he is, he happened to know several members of that particular parish's school board. And so he just asked a couple of them, why, I'm just curious, why didn't Tracy get it? And they said, she is just too scary for us because she is going to push change and different expectations than what we were hoping for. So they went with an internal candidate. So thank you for that. That is very flattering, but I really think I would scare everybody to death in this.
I'm gonna go ahead and put this out there. This is a little vent minute for me.
Sure.
It's so difficult. Okay, South Louisiana, especially, I find, maybe some of you will disagree, it's like still the good old boy system. And as a young person, an educator, that is very frustrating to see because, like, in my parish, a principal has not been written up in 15 years. 15 years, principals, everybody doing their job? No way, right? It's like this, I pat your back, you pat mine. Almost the worse you are as a principal, the faster you move up the chain. Okay, we'll stay in that principalship for 25, 30 years. And then once you're 70, you'll get this supervisor role. You don't really have to go out to schools. It's very hard. The end. Thanks for listening.
I came from a place where, as a principal, you had 3 years. If you didn't produce in 3 years, you're out the door. And the same thing was true, quite honestly, in central office positions. But I don't want to discourage you guys because, I think change has to happen, and you guys are the ones that are going to make it happen. And I've seen principals, who I had a teacher, honestly, God bless Ray Overton. He taught for 60 years. One of the most effective teachers I've ever seen in my life, even in year 60. He was amazing, but he was an anomaly. I think you just have to keep the faith and, keep pushing for change when it's needed. But I will tell you, as a citizen of Louisiana now, it was really hard for me when I gave up my Texas driver's license and my Texas license plates, to become a full Louisiana person. Nothing against Louisiana, but, I'm a native Texan. Louisiana's really behind the times, holistically. A lot of what I see compared to, and I've spoken nationally, I've traveled nationally. I'm used to places where we required principals to be in classrooms every single day. And they had to document it, they had to prove it, and we followed up. And, I could tell when principals had been in classrooms or not, just based on student behavior, if nothing else. But, I'm not seeing a lot of that in this state. Now, there's some stellar principals. Stupid internet. Sorry, my internet. I don't know what is going on tonight. It never does this. I've seen some stellar principals, in this area, but I've also seen some that I just shake my head. And this is a bad example, but I was one of those crazy principals that expected myself and my assistant principals to be at every single event that we had on campus. And we had to do a rotation because we couldn't all be everywhere all the time. But like Friday night football games, those are huge. Those were huge in Texas. And so we rode the buses with the kids and the team and all that, and they hated me for it. But it was really important. And I know when I've gone to my stepchildren's games and stuff in this area, I couldn't even tell you who the administrators were. Never saw them. And I just, that was that's how we got our community to buy into what we were doing, because they saw us informally. We could just talk and chat. And and sometimes I had parents accost me at a game, but you know what, that's okay. I'm just really, I don't know. You guys are going to be different. You give me hope and faith. Okay, what else? Yeah, Chelsea, I am excited to hear that. Oh, and by the way, Chelsea, you had an awesome picture too. I'm so glad you posted. I knew there was another one. You want to tell us about your picture?
It's so funny. I was actually video off from taking some of my girls home, so I'm back. But a lot of them, I couldn't pick one, so it was a collage. But basically, it just kind of showed much of what you were saying. I teach at a Title I school in an urban area here in Tallahassee, and a lot of our kids just truly are looking for love. You become mom, you become dad, you become the counselor, the therapist, all of those things. And so I couldn't pick one, but it literally showed my young ladies from our games and basketball, our summer bridge program with incoming ninth graders, and it bridged up all the way to kids graduating. And that's probably the best thing for me. I teach 9th through 12th with subjects, and seeing them walk across that stage, I feel like I birthed them. So the collage went from beginning to end is basically what it was.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm going to post yours too, if you don't mind, for everybody to see, because I love it. I could just feel the love that you had with your students and they had for you. It was awesome. Yeah, and guys, I will tell you, as a principal or a leader, as you're looking towards that first position, if you're not already there, the most important thing you can do is relationships. My first year, I went to a school in Dallas. I actually left the assistant superintendency in Irving. Oh my God, internet. Sorry, internet is driving me crazy tonight. So I chose to leave an assistant superintendency in Irving to go be a principal again because I missed being a principal. It's my favorite job ever. And I went to a school that was high achieving, and they were going to pay me the exact same salary to be a principal as I was making as an assistant superintendent. And of course, my first question is, why in the heck are you going to do that? And they said, we need you to get those people, meaning the parents and community at this school, to stop calling us. This was a very large school district with 160,000 students. And in a single semester, they logged over 1,000 calls to the assistant superintendent's office from this one school, and to the superintendent's office another 1,000. It was a different 1,000. So I spent my entire first year doing nothing but building relationships. I had an open door policy, and I was at every single thing we did. This was a performing arts high school, so all we did was perform. It like to killed me. I worked 7 days a week, 12 to 16-hour days every single day. And it was hard, but it was the most critical and important thing I could do. And I was really worried if our student achievement would sustain or go up. It actually went up because I invested in people. 2 years later, I was named the district's principal of the year. And I'll never forget when the superintendent was introducing me to the school board. And, and a lot of people, because they're like, oh, you're in that, performing visual arts school. You're all snooty arts people. And why in the world would you be principal of the year? You've got it easy. And he told the school board, he said, what people don't realize is how out of control the parents and community were. And in a 2-year time span, they went from over 2,000 calls to central office down to 3. And of those 3, 2 of them were from the same parent. And she was questioning a board policy. It had nothing to do with the school. And he said of the other one, we were able to resolve. He said, that is the mark of leadership. So guys, while we talk about all this stuff, curriculum, instruction, and all that, I will tell you the most important thing you can do as a leader is build relationships with your teachers, with your students, with your community, with everybody. And I saw that in so many of your pictures that you guys are just so invested. And if you do that, change will happen and you'll move up. And hopefully the good old boy, they got to die at some point, and that's terrible. I shouldn't even have said that. But they all retire. And I'll give you a statistic that may make you feel better. The latest research out of the National Association of Secondary School Principals is that 50% of current school administrators can or will retire in the next 5 years. So there's going to be a lot of openings, and I'm excited about the fact that you guys are awesome. I don't know you well in some ways, but in some ways I feel like I really do know you based on, how you respond to things. And like I said, the future is going to be good because we got great people coming up. Okay. Any other things, guys? Are you any concerns about finishing out assignments or questions or anything like that?
Yeah, the final exam, I just want to clarify. On the option, and one of them is the 15 slides, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's just that, not that and the video, right?
Right. So yeah, on the final exam, and I'm sorry if I made it overly complicated, there's two options. Option one is the case study and the documents. That's one piece that you can do that for your final exam. If you say, no, I don't want to do that, I want to do option two. Within option two, there are three choices. You can do the PowerPoint or the video or the paper. And I think somewhere the paper length changed or whatever, and I didn't catch it when I did my editing. Go with the smaller amounts. So on anything where there's a discrepancy, it's the smaller amount.
Okay, and everything that we've covered, you're saying like the highlights of,
yeah.
And there was a list of questions there to include those and just other highlights. Okay.
Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah, like I said, it's really, if you do the PowerPoint in particular or the video or the paper, kind of the idea is that it's a study guide for you when you get ready to take your certification test. It's one piece you can use. The case study, I have a student who just graduated in May. She texted me today, and she's like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I have an interview, and, for assistant principal's job. And guess what they want me to do? It's the final exam that you did for EDL 710. She has to present exactly what I had her do. So she's like, I'm so excited. I've already got this. I just have to update the data for this particular school. So like I said, I try to give you stuff that you can use later on in some form or fashion, but I don't care which one it is. So option two, let me pull it up. I see Andy posted that. Hang on. Whoops, I don't mean to do that. Let's see if it's going to let me share my screen. Hang on. I pulled this up earlier. Oh, here we go. Where is it?
You had just answered my question with what you said.
Oh, did I? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, because for some reason it logged me out of Moodle. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Oh, somebody said they need a field trip to North Louisiana. It's funny, Dr. Perry and I were talking about that today. We're like, we need to do a get-together in North Louisiana, and then we'll do one in South Louisiana, because we would love to get to meet y'all in person. That kind of sucks about online classes. Anyway, okay, anything else, guys?
So
right.
Dr. Perry popped up on me a couple days ago at my internship. He was like, Heather, I'm down the road. I was like,
Yeah, he's trying really hard.
Be on the lookout for him. He'll pop up.
Oh, he will. He will. Okay, so next week, I can't speak all of a sudden. No new content. But if we have questions or concerns or just kind of touch base with everybody and close out the course, we'll do that. Oh, Megan, you're so sweet. We're seriously thinking about doing that. Oh, and one more thing, guys. Some of you I know are finishing up and graduating this summer. So please check back with me in the fall as well, because we actually do a luncheon for our graduates and stuff, and I want to make sure you don't get missed if you're a summer grad. Okay. All right, guys. Well, I'm giving you a whole 5 minutes of your lives back tonight, so enjoy that 5 minutes that you didn't expect to have, and have a great evening, and we will see you guys next week. Thanks.